The one genre I would say, the Marvel movie. I mean, you could say Harrison Ford's a superhero in a different sense, or Alien or something, but you
Right.
haven't done that kind of movie. You have no interest in comic book
Well,
movies?
I shouldn't be doing it. I have been criticizing the superhero movies because I find frequently the stories are usually fairly weak. And it's like, let's save the world. And fine, that like, okay. And so the story tends to be very much crafted around how good the special effects are. Is that fair? That's what it is.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Sigourney Weaver was a superhero. Um, the guy in Gladiator, Maximus, was a superhero. And you can write better stories for superheroes, I think.
Yeah. There's
But
no.
I shouldn't criticize Marvel because I learned to draw off their comics, so I should shut.
Do you want to be left in the dust? You want to keep selling coffee mugs in airports? Is that your legacy? It's time to take out the trash. Aldo and Paolo, they're poison. They're an embarrassment to this company, and everybody knows it. They have to go. And you need to get your fucking business organized.
Patricia. They are my family.
So am I.
Welcome Behind the Lens. Today he needs no introduction. Surprisingly to me, I didn't even realize you didn't get your first big directing feature film, until the age of 40 in 1977. Won a prize at Cannes for The Duelist. Now sort of like all the way back, another movie with Duel in the title here, The Last Duel, and House of Gucci. Two films, not just one, this fall. And you know what, Ridley, I am so pleased to see that the adult audience is coming back to theaters with House of Gucci clearly doing well with that. Because a lot of people had questions, can we get them back into theaters? And I think this movie is really connecting.
Well, I hope so. Because the problem is our biggest competitor is not just COVID, it's technology. Because there's a screen up to me right here. It's almost 6 feet across in this office, and the technology is fantastic. In a way, it's almost better than any cinema you can see. But I think that's our biggest problem. People don't really want to go out. It's too expensive to get the theater, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we do miss what we used to call audience participation. There's nothing like sitting in a large auditorium with an audience where we're all going the same direction. We're taken up by what is on that beautiful big screen.
Because both your films this fall, Last Duel and House of Gucci, opened exclusively in theaters, which is getting to be more of a rare thing. There's usually some VOD thing or streaming, and you're still going for what I call the traditional way of seeing movies. I can't imagine seeing either one of these movies first on a television screen. That's just me.
A film's life doesn't end with the box office. If the film's got it's got wings, it'll go on for 20 years.
Yeah, well, your movies are showing the test of time. They go there, and you like all your movies too. If one was a financial failure or something, you don't suddenly disown it or make excuses.
No regrets about anything. I don't think any of them, as far as I'm concerned, honestly, have failed at all. I think it's what the audience have failed to get it. That's why because Blade Runner was a disaster because people were so, I guess, sophisticated. It was way ahead of the game, and people didn't understand it. And now it's like the #1 in the Library of Congress. It's like crazy. I never read my own press ever again. Never.
Wow.
Because when it's great press, you think, oh my God, you rule the world. And when it's bad press, you want to, kill yourself. So, I don't ever read anything.
That's interesting. So you didn't read my review of House of Gucci, which was very good, I'll tell you.
No, you did. I did. Thank you very much. I must say I had to sneak and read that.
I have to ask you too, because you have these two films that have very strong, and so many of your movies do, very strong roles for women. And that seems to be a key theme going back to Alien and Thelma and Louise and others. Is there something that interests you in really getting these kind of three-dimensional stories?
I think it comes from a mom who was a very tough guy. My dad was army, so my mother brought up three boys. There was me, there was a kid called Tony Scott who later did Top Gun Beverly Hills Cop. So, and then a brother, elder brother, who was a sea captain from, he got a command at 29. So he would do all the South China Sea going up to communist China in the 60s and 70s. So, you know, she did good, and we respected her really very, very much. She was the man and the woman in the house.
What was it about House of Gucci, which I know your wife has been working on for
Yeah.
20 years to bring it to the screen at many different iterations along the way? What was it about this one, driven by that role, Patrizia, that Lady Gaga plays? Why did you want to spend time doing this?
Well, I think my wife and I have been together 27 years actually, and she's a producer, and her known films have been she produced with Will Smith about impact in sport, in football. It's a good film with Will, playing a Dr. Amalu who discovered this condition from impact.
Concussion. It was a great movie, actually.
And so she's done a few, but she had this Gucci idea where there'd been quite a few books on Gucci and quite a few articles on Gucci, and also because she had spent 7 years in Italy at the time. She was there when this happened. So I think the impact of having such the man about town shot on the doorstep of his offices was shocking at the time. So it stuck with her more than me. But I related to, it's honestly like the Medici or the Borgias, the self-destruct by the family, by all the people in the family who simply cannot agree about anything. So eventually you'll tear each other apart. That's a fascinating idea, but it also it's so many layers, because it begins with good intent. I think Patricia Gucci definitely was in love with Maurizio Gucci when she first met him, and not because, and the way I did it, it's easy to say, well, she knows he's a Gucci, so she goes for him as a gold digger. I don't think that's true. And so I tried to emphasize the fact that when she meets him, all he is called Maurizio, and she's more taken by the fact the guy was so genteel and polite with her. She'd never been treated like that by a man. I think that's what really got her initially. And then suddenly she discovered, my God, he's a Gucci. And was she a gold digger? No, but clearly a guy with money is going to be attractive. And so there's a little bit of that to it.
And she's still alive. Has she seen the film? Do you have any connection with her?
No. She might not yet. I think, what's interesting is, had she just played it differently, she may have been the head of the Gucci empire now.
Very interesting to see this story evolve. And you work with actors so well. Do you do your own casting, or do you have a casting director that you trust? And
when I'm prepping anything, I've always got the leading characters in mind, and then of course the casting director will then, that's almost always. Then the casting director will come. There's a million. I mean, I'm doing Napoleon right now. There's 150 speaking parts. So I came in saying the sell for me was, I want to do Napoleon, and I want to have Joaquin Phoenix. And I've just worked with Jodie Comer. I want her to be Josephine. And the story is fundamentally locked into the idea of the need that these two had for each other. And therefore, there's a study in that. And of course, it's silly to say it's about sex. That'll wear out pretty quick. But on top of that, there's also his entire career where he did 61 battles. I have to deal with, I'll try and tell a story where we see 6 important battles.
in past movies that I've seen on him, like Waterloo, there was like one battle basically.
Well, that's why, yeah, you couldn't understand who he was. I think Waterloo was not a successful way of telling the story about him. No.
It's so interesting that you take on so many period movies, which are so big and scaled and things. And is that just something that interests you as a filmmaker to go into these other eras and things so often?
Yes, I've got a fascination with the beauty of history and the beauty of architecture, the beauty of costume. And, you know, history constantly repeats itself because we don't learn shit by history, right?
Right.
And that's why, in a funny kind of way, the last Duel is a very good, and we didn't make it because we felt it actually was very much a Me Too condition, but ironically it is. And what it shows is how the entire arena and universe of that discussion doesn't change. It's the same.
You knew what would happen to me should you lose this duel. You knew, and you didn't tell me.
God will not punish those who tell the truth.
My fate and our child's fate will be written not by God's will, but by which old man will tire first.
How dare you speak to me this way?
What if I to lose? I begged you to find another way, and now I might be burned alive.
I am risking my life for you.
You are risking my life so you can fight your enemy and save your pride. And that could render our child an orphan. Or did you not think of that?
I have to ask you, making two films, not just one, two films in the middle of a pandemic, one that was completely shut down for months, The Last Duel, another one that came after that you had to make in a different way. But you strike me, looking at everything you do, you love challenges. So that must have just been fun.
Got to do my job. You got to embrace stress. I kind of, when I get stressed, I feel alive.
So that's okay for you. You just adjust.
Yeah. Listen, I love dogs, but it beats walking the spaniel.
I have to ask you, I mean, as a director who had a finished film, all the money in the world, and then a scandal come upon one of your leading actors, and what you did was amazing. I can fix this. I can do this. I can replace him and do that. I mean, how many people would even try that?
Well, we did it in 9 days. I mean, I changed him overnight. I flew to New York. I met Chris. Chris said he was interested. Then I had to give him time to read it. He hadn't read it. And we met in New York. He read it the next day and said, okay, I'm on. I had him in London within a week, and I completed him in nine days.
You also are very confident too, because of your background. You do all the drawings, everything you came up with in drawing. You've got the movie laid out very much like Hitchcock, I think, in that way, storyboards and everything.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Well, I was my best, most valuable time. My education was not academic. Was I went to art school, little art school, provincial art school, where ironically, it was as good as the Royal College that I went to later. I learned a lot at my provincial art school, and I utilized everything I learned every day what I'm doing right now, right? Wow. I've even designed the next Christmas card from us. This is a telephone doodle.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, as we talk.
Isn't that great? You're a multitasker, to say the least.
Well, I'm been drawing. I have to draw when I'm talking. It's weird, isn't it?
That's amazing, but that's helpful for, say, the Napoleon movie, which you're going to do, what, in about 3 months or so?
I'm filming in about January. I start real serious January the 2nd. So we're now about 6 weeks off. Yeah.
So you have it all laid out right now. You could probably do it right now.
I'm on my technical recce now, which means all the locations are chosen. I'm now going around with my heads of department. There could be as many as 24 heads of department, which will go around and look at every place we're going to work. Everyone going from transportation to camera to how do we get this in? A lot of it is movement control. When something that big, you got a huge movement control.
I don't think it's a secret. You're nearing your mid 80s. I think that's in your case, that's somewhere in the 50s, maybe. I don't know. I mean, you seem to have boundless energy. And at a time when many people would have retired and ended their career, you've made movies, just these two movies, Last Duel and House of Gucci, that are not the work of someone I would expect at that age.
I've had a very long and practiced career. And my film school was my time, which I really loved. I spent 20 years in advertising where we were very, very successful. So the company grew, and the company still is now 55 years old today, and it's still functioning in, you know, in London, New York, and LA, and Amsterdam. We still do, even through COVID, we survived the advertising in all the companies. So we're there to kind of embrace advertising as it comes back in its different form. It's a constantly moving target now because half of the stuff is on this thing. And I still say the advertising, the niblets that you get in here are more irritating than useful, right?
Yeah.
You get a message, but I have an ad in between. It's really annoying. So I think it's more annoying than useful.
And speaking of companies and things, Scott Free is definitely, without question, one of the most prolific production companies. You just as a producer, I mean, I look at page after page after page after page after page on IMDb. That's before you even get to your directing credits here. It's really a remarkable output and a lot of very high quality stuff. Good Fight. It's one of the best shows, period, on television right now.
But the Kings are unique. The husband and wife team, I think they're a couple of the best writers in television. There's no one like it. And I'm always trying to get them to write a film for me, but they're too busy, damn it.
I had the pleasure of doing this very show with them, interviewing them. They're amazing.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was the good wife and then the Good Fight. Yeah, that's incredible.
Both of that, but so much of this too that you're just a producer on, that you don't choose to direct. One I just want to ask you, interesting, is Death on the Nile, which Kenneth Branagh directed, and has Armie Hammer in it, and suddenly he was enveloped in a scandal, and I wondered if you thought, oh my God, not again, here we go again.
Well, I did, because you think, good God, what do you get up to? Holy shit. I mean, I'm like, what? What? I mean, I'm speechless. What? I can't comment. It's like unbelievable.
Oh man. I mean,
and I hope to believe that there's not a lot in it, and I haven't followed it. So I do hope that it is not true.
I was pleased to say, because I play tennis every Saturday with a guy here in LA who is obsessed. When I say obsessed with Gladiator, I am not exaggerating. He's seen it at least 80 times, 100 times. He asked me when I said, I'm going to interview Ridley Scott. We talk about you a lot because he really is a big fan. Kingdom of Heaven is another movie he has seen in both the extended version and other versions. He wanted me to ask you, is there a 6-hour version of Gladiator somewhere that he had heard?
We're doing another one. We're doing Gladiator is being written now. We're on Gladiator 2 now, so Gladiator 2 will be on the charts for us as we finish Kitback or Napoleon. That'll be the next one. Will be Gladiator.
You were a big fan of Hollywood movies, studio movies. It's very clear you're one of the few out there that's still making movies, in my opinion, true to what we might have seen from the great directors here. It doesn't seem to be something you see that often anymore.
I like to hope and feel that it won't go away, and that we will not be just making fodder for the platforms, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is the technology in domestic technology is so high that frankly, most of the material looks better than on a cinema. So that is what we're fighting. We're fighting the fact that you do not have to go out. You do not have to spend $200 to take your family, see a cinema, get some popcorn, something, and you know, parking in a car park, sitting in a theater, and all the hassle attached to it. You just go in your living room, switch it on, go and get a beer when you want, and you're home.
So I'm hoping we win the fight on that, because, you know, I looked at both these movies, just your two most recent, and I'm going, now, this is what movie making is, in my opinion.
Yes, and well, thank you, because that's what we hope, that some people will get it.
Thank you so much for joining me on Behind the Lens. And I have to say, normally I would have my cat here who likes to be here. My cats are named Thelma and Louise. So I'll tell them I talked to you.
Nice to talk to you, Pete. Bye.